we have our very special guest, Natasha Parry, who is a bookkeeper for creatives. And I'll just let her share a little bit more about who she is and the work that she does.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm excited to talk to you all. I'm also really excited to have this opportunity to partner with ArtCloud. It's a really great platform for artists and galleries alike. And I actually do bookkeeping for a client that uses ArtCloud, and that's kind of what gave me this opportunity to learn about the software and to connect with you all today. So I own a bookkeeping firm called 3x3 Bookkeeping, and I help artists, gallery owners, and other creative small businesses not only to do their bookkeeping so that they can stay on top of their finances and be tax ready, but also help them to understand their numbers so they can make better business decisions grounded in financial data. So I kind of understand the typical bookkeeping challenges that artists and gallery owners face. And so I'll just be here today to share some tips and advice for you so you can make sure your bookkeeping and accounting systems are set up for success.
So, yep, today we will be talking all about finances. So we're really excited to have Natasha with us. She's such an expert on all of the things associated with money and taxes and how they apply to artists who are running a business, making sales. And Alex is obviously our pro with the software. So he'll be walking us through the financial tools that ArtCloud provides and giving you all a little insight into how those work, whether you're a customer or you're interested in ArtCloud. We'll be sharing, how it can support your business and career. So excited to have you here. For anybody who came in a few minutes late, please just put any of your questions in the chat. Megan will be answering them as we go. And we'll also open up the Q&A at the end of the meeting, so you can ask Natasha and Alex or myself any other questions then as well. So please just keep yourself on mute and let's get started. So as Natasha explained, she will be covering a lot of really important financial tools and aspects of, running your business. So that would include knowing your accounting method for reports and taxes. And then she also provided a profit loss workbook, which is a super helpful tool, and that's free for all of you who are here today. I sent that out in an email, so hopefully some of you came with that prepared to kind of look over it with Natasha. If not, I'll be including it in a follow-up email along with the recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to get all that information and use that amazing workbook. Just a little bit about office hours if you haven't been here before. This is a webinar series that ArtCloud offers to artists, where we just share a range of topics for career-minded artists on the business of art, from topics like how to get into a gallery, to how to create a successful marketing plan for your artwork, to our event today, which is all about finances. So we really dig deep and offer a lot of different important topics for artists. So we will be doing these quarterly this year, and this is our first one to start off the year. And those are available on the ArtCloud website, so you'll be able to find those there. You can follow the link in the recording as well and watch our previous ArtCloud office hours for artist videos. And just a little overview about what ArtCloud is. ArtCloud is a software, management software for artists. We also provide management software for galleries, as Natasha mentioned. But right now we're focusing on the artist software. So for artists, our management software supports inventory, organization, and management. It offers sales and marketing tools like email templates, So you can create marketing emails all from your one management system. We have a sales tracker. We have payment reports, sales over time reports, which Alex will get into. Really important, amazing tools that really help artists run their business, as well as social media integration. So you can make sales on your social media, email integration, so you can communicate with clients all from one, the same system, which is really helpful. And then we also offer custom branded documents like wall tags, tear sheets, invoices, which Alex will be going over the details of how to create an invoice on ArtCloud in just a moment. Lastly, we have the website builder for artists, which would integrate with your management system. So you can make sales from your website, and those will update your inventory automatically and kind of generate those invoices for you as well. So it's an all-in-one comprehensive tool for artists. And we encourage you to try out the system with a 14-day trial if you are not yet on ArtCloud.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
And before I get started, I want to give a shout out to my high school art teacher. I won't say her name. There she is. All right, she raised her hand. So it's so cool. Thanks for being here. It's awesome and ironic. I love it.
Yeah. And also an ArtCloud customer.
And also an ArtCloud user. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
I can't wait to send a screenshot to my mom. So like Laura mentioned, ArtCloud is a comprehensive platform to help artists and galleries grow their business, both in growing their revenue, but also adding efficiencies throughout their kind of daily operations. And like she mentioned, we have two kind of core products that support that. One is the ArtCloud Manager, and one is the ArtCloud Website Builder. And within the ArtCloud Manager, we have a kind of a handful of financial tools. Those range from invoicing, so enabling artists to create invoices for any sales that they're selling out of their studio. You can also create invoices that would represent gallery sales if you have a reseller or a consignor that's selling it, as well as kind of marking inventory sold as a gift. So and we'll cover that in a little bit more detail in just a second. As you start using the invoicing functionality of ArtCloud, it will give you access to a range of functionality, but some of that, specifically to this webinar, is reporting functionality on your sales and taxes. And we'll go over some of that reporting as well. And Natasha knows a lot more about accounting settings of cash and accrual, but I'll show you how ArtCloud responds to both accounting methods of cash and accrual, as well as how to add and edit sales tax rates inside the platform. So without further ado, we'll pop over here to look at what could be a familiar dashboard inside of ArtCloud. We won't go over too much of the platform that's outside the scope of this, but I do want to, for anyone that's not seen ArtCloud, just quickly run through a couple of pages. ArtCloud gives you the ability to add and manage all of your inventory. So you can have robust inventory management. It allows you to manage all of your gallery relationships. So you can manage your consignments and see which galleries are selling what for you. You can manage all of your contacts and collectors. And then kind of for most relevancy to this webinar, it has a robust invoice management functionality. So if you were to come into your ArtCloud account, you can create an invoice. And once you create an invoice, you can select a contact. Invoice is kind of date, so we'll automatically assume it's the sales date is today, but you can always change this to a few days ago if you sold a piece and are just kind of catching up with the paperwork of it. Once you've created this invoice, you can then add inventory items. So you can go and click here to add some inventory. You can find your piece. If you have a lot of pieces of inventory in your platform, you can search up here for particular artworks. You can always click this little blue tornado if you want to search by a specific field. Otherwise, you can just type in kind of anything in here, and we'll search against most fields of your artwork. As we add this inventory item, you see that you can make particular items taxable or not. So you can check this little drop down and change the tax rate from traditional sales tax to GST VAT if you're overseas, or if it's a non-taxable sale for whatever reason, you can also just turn the taxes off completely. We also offer the ability to add service line items. So if you're going to charge your client to go and install the piece, for example, you can add an installation fee or restoration, or whatever that might be, and those services can be taxable or not, depending on what you want. As you come in through here, you can also see that you can add a global discount on the invoice, or you can discount particular line items if you want to discount them differently. Track your shipping, any kind of comments. You'll see that your tax rate is selected here, and right at the end of the demo, I'll show you where you can adjust your default tax rates. And you can always add multiple tax rates if you need them, or just go into manual entry and do a one-off tax. Once you've created the invoice, you can email it to your client, and they can pay remotely. So they can click on a link, type their credit card in, and that will process that payment and deposit that into your bank account. If you are not using 𝗺cloud for payment processing, you can always come over to this payments tab here and then add a ledger. So even if you're not using this for payments, you need to add that payment, that record of a payment, into the platform so that we have some record of what to pull on your analytics later on. So we'll go ahead and add a dummy payment here. Let's let's mock up that they had sent us Venmo. They sent us over Venmo. We add that full payment. As soon as the invoice is paid in full, you'll see that the status up here in the right changes the invoice to closed from being open. Invoices can be open, on approval, closed, or declined. Now that we have a closed invoice, we're going to go ahead and pop on over to our analytics. You'll see that you can see, what sales have happened in any given date range. Right now we're looking at your quarter to date, but you could always look at, this particular month to date, custom if you want to pick, specific date ranges. The two core sales reports that we're going to cover today are your sales over time. This is really your core sales report. It's going to show you all the sales that happened within that date range, and it's going to give you access to the most variables and kind of data points. You can export this report to CSV, PDF, QuickBooks Desktop, or QuickBooks Online. And you can also just edit your columns if you wanted to view some more information. If you wanted to see, what was the origin of my invoice, or what were the dimensions of my artwork, or the discounts. You can kind of pick a lot of different fields if you're kind of trying to get nitty gritty about some of the data of what's driving these sales. I spoke just briefly about two accounting methods, cash and accrual. By default, 𝗺cloud's going to assume a cash accounting method, which means these reports, the date ranges of these reports, are going to pull sales activity where the invoice close date is within this date range. If you're in accrual, that as an accounting method, then this report will pull off of the open date of the invoice. So it's a subtle difference, but a difference depending on how you have your accounting set up. If you're more interested in cash flow, kind of like, what payments are actually coming in and out of your bank account, the payments report is going to pull all the payment activity from any invoice that's within this date range. So this report doesn't care when the invoice was opened or when it was closed. It's going to pull all of the payment data that you've logged in 𝗺cloud, both through credit card processing or that you just logged as a ledger payment, and it's going to pull this. So this will just give you a really nice report of how many funds have actually come into your bank account, via sales that you logged into 𝗺cloud. Real quick before we wrap up with the product demo, under account settings, there's a robust amount of settings that you can access, but relevant to this, your accounting method right here. So under configuration, you can change your accounting method from cash to accrual. And if you wanted to add or edit any default sales tax rates for your invoices, under your locations, you can select your default location, and then from here, add or edit any tax rates. So for example, if the Atlanta tax changes in 2023, you can make your old Atlanta sales tax inactive so that it's not used on any new invoices, and then make a new Atlanta sales tax for 2023 that is whatever the new percentage is. So with all of that said, if you have any questions, you can chat in, and any more we'll try to get to the end, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Natasha.
All right. Thanks, Alex, for that demo. That was really great. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, is that coming through okay? Everybody can see? Okay, great. So yeah, I'm going to go over a few things with you today. As Laura and Alex mentioned, the first thing we're going to talk about is tax filing basis. So cash and accrual basis accounting define at what point in time a business should record its income and expenses. So on a cash basis, income and expenses are recorded at the point in time that cash is received or payment is made. Whereas accrual basis, on the other hand, records income and expenses at the point in time that a transaction occurs, but before any money is received or dispensed. So I will show an example in a minute, but generally speaking, cash basis accounting tends to be less complicated than accrual basis and is more commonly used by small businesses just because of its simplicity. So because it's recording income and expenses at the time that money is exchanged, you can usually just base your bookkeeping off of bank statement data. Whereas accrual basis requires management of accounts payable and accounts receivable, but it does kind of give you a different picture of the financial standing of your company because it's showing you incurred revenue and expenses at the same time. So it becomes a little like that accrual basis tends to become more important as like a business gets pretty large. But sometimes it's something that a business who files their taxes on a cash basis might want to look at those kind of reports internally. And that is something that is possible, but just for clarity's sake, the things that I'm talking about today are going to be all based on a cash basis system and like for tax purposes, okay? So I will show you, let's get into that example of cash versus accrual. So say you bill a client for a piece of art on February 21st, and then you receive that payment on March 17th. Under the cash basis, that income would be recorded on March 17th, so the date that that money was in your hands. But under accrual basis, you would record that income on February 21st, the date you made the sale. So that's like the date the customer agrees that they're going to buy it from you, you send them an invoice, all of that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see how this would affect your monthly reporting. Because under the cash basis, that income wouldn't show on your financial reports until March. But if you used accrual basis, you would show that income in February. And the same principles apply to expenses. So, you know, thinking in terms of a utility bill that you pay for your studio space, if you receive a bill on February 20th, it's due March 19th, and then you pay it on March 12th. Under cash basis, you're going to record that expense on March 12th, the date that you paid. But under accrual, that expense would be recorded on February 20th. So again, it's just kind of impacting your financial statements a little bit differently. And that is the kind of bottom line difference between cash and accrual. All right, so the other thing to mention is that you definitely should be speaking with your tax preparer to determine the right filing basis for your business if you haven't done that already, because there are tax implications in deciding between the two methods. And you also kind of, the IRS doesn't want you to like jump between cash and accrual from year to year. So typically, if you were going to change from cash to accrual, your accountant would need to file a form with the IRS to like signify that change. So just keep that in mind. But once you've determined, like Alex said, which basis is right for you, just make sure that you get into ArtCloud and set up those configurations properly. Choose cash or accrual so that the reports that you're getting out of ArtCloud are going to be the proper data that you need to do your bookkeeping for tax purposes. All right. So now sales tax. I haven't totally looked through the chat, but I saw at least a few sales tax questions come up, which is not surprising to me. I'm going to give, only because sales tax is complicated. So I'm going to just give a general overview of sales tax liability today, and send you some more specific resources that you can look into further based on your business's needs. But one of the things that I commonly see small business owners miss especially when they're like new to e-commerce or new to shipping goods, is that they don't always realize that sales tax rates are based off of the end user location, the location of delivery. So that kind of impacts the rates that you need to be charging. And I'll kind of go into that in a second here, but so I guess it has different implications for shipping within your state, where you'll need to track sales tax rates based on each specific location that you're delivering to. Because sales tax rates vary by county, by city, and can sometimes even include other like local tax rates. And then sometimes it has different implications for when you're shipping outside of your state. So kind of talking about that first, when you're shipping goods outside of your state, you need to collect, file, and pay sales taxes in that state only if you meet the nexus laws for that state. So this is a really great, this nexus laws link here from the Sales Tax Institute. This is a really great resource on economic nexus by states. It shows you a breakdown state by state of what the threshold is to become eligible for paying sales taxes in that state, if that is not your state of origin. So if you do not live in Alaska and you're shipping goods to Alaska, they're saying $100,000 or 200 transactions. So you can see that the threshold varies quite a bit. Some are $250,000, some are $100,000, some have like a number of transactions. So if you're, selling high volumes, sometimes the transaction limits can kind of trigger you to be eligible before you would even hit a dollar amount threshold. So anyways, this is a good thing to just have on hand so that you can keep an eye on when you might need to start to register to start filing and paying sales taxes in a particular state. It also tells you the measurement date, kind of like where you're measuring based on, and then when you need to register once you exceed. So is there a way we can I post this in the chat maybe? That'd be helpful. Or Laura, do people have access?
For sure.
Yeah, I just reminded everyone that we'll be sending out this presentation when we send out the follow-up email, and that we'll have the link as well. But let's pop it in the chat. Why not?
All right. Awesome. It's in the chat, but that's good to know it's coming out on the presentation as well. So yeah, this is kind of the first place to go to make sure that you're on top of that nexus for out-of-state shipping, out-of-state taxes. So then the second piece of it is, once you've determined whether or not you have nexus in a particular state, or if it's in your home state where you're going to have nexus no matter what, like you have to pay taxes on goods sold within your own state, typically, unless you're a state that's tax-free. Then you have to kind of figure out what rate to charge your customers, because if they're picking up from your studio, then it's going to be your local rate. But if you're shipping it within your state or shipping it to a specific location in a state that you have nexus, there's a resource that I wanted to pass along for you guys to be able to calculate those rates. So I have an example here. This is a sales tax rate calculator from the Minnesota Department of Revenue. So this is my home state. I live in Minnesota. You can come in here and enter in an address, a specific address, and it's going to tell you what the tax rate is like based on that specific address. And so I know that every state Department of Revenue has a resource like this. So I would just make sure that you can Google search sales tax rate calculator for whatever state it is that you need to know, and then Google search for it, and make sure that you are finding something from their state Department of Revenue. There's a lot of different resources on the internet, so just make sure you're going straight to the source, go straight to the government website to get your data from, and then you'll make sure that it's accurate, because sales tax rates do change over time. So if you go straight to the source, you'll make sure you're getting the most accurate information possible. So yeah, you're gonna just make sure that when you're making those invoices to your customers in @Cloud, you're putting in the correct sales tax rate and tracking that kind of on your own to make sure that you're able to file and pay separately. But this, like from a financial standpoint, as long as you're charging your customer the right rate, you'll have the money in hand to be able to make that payment correctly when the time comes. All right, so now that we kind of understand tax filing basis and sales tax requirements for shipping goods, I just want to talk a little bit about the profit and loss workbook for artists that you all received for registering today. I'm going to talk a little bit high level about a few things about it before I actually demo it. But this workbook will help you utilize the data that is available in @Cloud in conjunction with pulling expense data from your business bank accounts to help give you an accurate picture of how your business is performing on a cash basis. So this is a really great tool for those of you kind of who aren't ready, like I said, to be in that full-fledged like Xero or QuickBooks software, but you still want to have a handle on your business financials. The workbook will essentially create a profit and loss report, which will help calculate your net profit, which is the amount of money left over after you subtract your expenses from your income, which is arguably the most important financial figure for you to know about your business, as it just helps you to understand how profitable you are. If you need to reduce your expenses, increase your prices, grow your sales or whatnot, it can really inform the financial direction of your business. And then of course, helps you from scrambling at tax time to get all this info ready for your accountant as well. So double bonus. Oh yes, and @Cloud is a software subscription fee. So it is a tax deductible expense that make sure that you're getting that into the tracker as well. But before we dive in, a few more just like foundational tips for your business bookkeeping in general, and also to ensure data integrity when you're using the profit and loss workbook. So my first tip is make sure that you have separate business bank and credit card accounts that all of your business transactions are running through. And the same applies to PayPal and Venmo and things like that. This is truly a best practice in general for bookkeeping. And one of the biggest benefits that it provides is a trusted source document for you to base your bookkeeping and accounting from. Without it, it's just a lot more difficult to piece together your business financial activity. So I would say to you, if you do not yet have one, put it on your to-do list for 2023 and try to get your 2023 books as accurate as possible by having your personal and business expenses all separated out, and income for that matter. Second tip is to consider opening a separate bank account to hold your sales taxes that you've collected from your customers before they're paid out to the states. So if you move that money that you've collected for sales tax from your customers into a separate account from your operating account, it really helps you to not spend that money before it's due. Because technically that's just money that is passing through your hands and shouldn't really be available for your business to spend. So I would just recommend like putting it out of sight, out of mind into a different account really helps you to not end up in a situation where those taxes are due and the money is gone. So, which is a really easy thing to do when kind of things are in the same bucket. So, and then the third tip is just don't forget about payment processor fees. So I'm going to go into this next, but recording income when you're using a payment processor and or collecting sales taxes can be tricky and is often the #1 mistake I see small businesses make when they're doing their own bookkeeping. So I will show you an example of why. So this kind of ties into some of the other things that we've been talking about today. So we've talked about how on a cash basis, income is recorded at the time money is received, and that we can often base our bookkeeping around our bank statement data. But if you're accepting money via credit cards or payment processors, you cannot just record the dollar amount deposited into your bank account as your income, as that is not a true number. So this is where the ArtCloud reports are going to come in handy. So for the cash basis, I'm always looking at the payments report. So this report is going to give you a breakdown of your gross sales, your taxes, and any payment processor fees so that you can record what you need to in the profit and loss workbook. So I'm going to show that in detail, but first let's just kind of go through these numbers and look at this example to see what's going on and just really kind of dig into the why. So say you sell a painting for $5,000 and you charge $500 to pack and ship that piece of art and then ship it to the collector that bought it, who lives across the state from you. So my collector lives in 𝗺𝗿, Minnesota, up north by Lake Superior. I'm in Minneapolis, so I do have to charge sales tax. And the sales tax rate in 𝗺𝗿, I will show you. I've got this pulled up here. 𝗺𝗿, Minnesota has a sales tax rate of 8.375%. So I've looked that up in the Minnesota Department of Revenue based on the exact address that this piece of work is being shipped to. The collector gets charged $460.90 in sales tax and is due $5,960.90. And that's what they pay you. But they pay you through Stripe, and Stripe takes out $173 and change in processor fees. So the amount that's deposited into your bank account is $5,787.73. So this is a clear example of why when you see this $5,787 deposited into your bank account, you can't just call that income because it's truly not. So what you need to record for your profit and loss are 3 things. So for income, in this particular situation, the top 2 lines are both income. So we've got $5,000 for the painting, $500 in shipping income. So we're going to record that to income. And then we also need to record the expense of $173.17 as payment processor fees. But we do not record the tax on the profit and loss workbook. And that is because, like we talked about, that tax is neither income nor an expense to your business. It's a liability. It's money that's running through your hands and you have to hold on to it until you pay it out to the state. So this part does not get recorded on the profit and loss tracker, but just should be kept recorded somewhere so that you can make those sales tax filings. All right. So with that, I'm gonna jump into the profit and loss tracker and give you an overview of what that is, how it functions, and how to use it. So yeah. It kind of functions as a multi-tab workbook. So this first page is an instructional page that you can look back on your own time. It's going to show you exactly what you need to do to fill out these monthly tabs. And I put information in here about when you're exporting your payment report from ArtCloud, specifically what fields you need to include when you're doing your CSV download of the payments report. So that's all in here. You're going to want to include the sold price, the shipping, sales tax, payment method, the Stripe fee, a Stripe estimated payout date, and any incurred expenses. And so we're going to use all of this data from that report to enter our income. And then we're going to grab our expenses from our bank, and then compile that in here in the monthly tabs. And what that does is populate this profit and loss tab. So this tab, you're not going to enter any information into directly. And actually, you really don't want to do that because that will kind of break all of the formulas that are embedded into this. So make sure that when you're entering data, you're just entering it into within each month, this copy paste data here section. But I'll go over that in a second. So this profit and loss page is essentially functioning like that profit and loss report, the standard financial report. It gives you, there's basically two main equations that it calculates. The first one is your net profit. So the calculation for net profit is your total income, which is going to show here, less all of your expenses. So your expenses are your cost of goods sold and all of these other kind of categories of expenses, which are kind of like your general or overhead expenses, plus any other income. And it's going to show you your total net profit at the bottom here, which if it's a profit, it's going to be positive. If it's a loss, it's going to be negative. The second equation that this workbook calculates is your gross profit. And gross profit is total income less cost of goods sold. So your cost of goods sold, like your is usually like materials for your artwork, freight for shipping, framing, things like that. So it's the definition of a cost of goods sold is a cost that is directly related to the sale of the good, whereas some of these other expenses are more overhead type things. So these cost of goods sold items are likely the expenses that you're tracking within ArtCloud if you're utilizing that expense module there. And I would say the benefit of tracking expenses in both of these places is that this tracker gives you kind of your big picture financial overview. And in ArtCloud, it's tracking like artwork specific expenses to the artwork itself. Will show you what your profit margin is on that piece of art. And then you can kind of make sure like these two reports will kind of like work in tandem because you can make sure that your profit margin on every individual piece of art is large enough to cover the average margin needed to cover all of your overhead, kind of based on what the total of these other expenses ends up being. So that's kind of a calculation you can do on the side, but the data is here that you need to be able to calculate that and figure out if you're pricing your work where it needs to be. All right. So just kind of looking at how this functions then, the first thing we're going to do is enter our expenses, and we're going to get that information from our business only bank account that we all have set up, right? So when you go into your bank account, you can usually download a bank statement or bank transactions into a CSV file. So just kind of pull up the date range at hand. So if we're entering in January, we would want to pull a date range of January 1st through the 31st, find all of that data, export it into a CSV file. So I've got a sample here. Here we go. So this is a sample of the transactions downloaded from the bank account. It's giving me the date, the description, which is usually going to be like a payer or a payee, and then the amount. And because this is coming straight from the bank, it dates it chronologically, or it's sorted by a date chronologically at current moment. So, but we've already talked about why we don't want to enter our income from our bank account. So the first thing we're going to do with this data is I'm going to sort by this amount column, so that we can see all expenses are a negative and all income is a positive. So this way we can easily sort through the difference between expenses and income at the bottom. Okay. So in looking at our income, we have a few rows of income here. This first line is interest income. And I'm going to leave that in here because interest income is likely not recorded in 𝗺cloud. So this is something that we want to make sure that we get into our profit and loss tracker. But all of the other lines of income, these other 6 lines, are sales that were entered into 𝗺cloud and paid out either via Stripe or via check, but those sales are still recorded in 𝗺cloud, and that information is going to be available on the payments report. So we're just gonna, I'm gonna either delete these out, but I'm actually just gonna hide them for now, but you could just delete them out because you're not going to use them for this portion. If your bank statement isn't formatted in such a way, just make sure that it's column A is date, column B is description, column C is amount, and that will make it really easy to just copy and paste this data right into the January, or oops. What am I doing here? Right into the January tab of our profit and loss tracker. So at this point, we've got all of our expenses in. If you had more than one bank account, you're going to want to do this for every bank account, PayPal, Venmo, whatnot. And we're just going to start categorizing what these are. So studio rent, that's going to go under rent or maintenance fee under real estate. Blick art materials and U-checked, those are both cost of goods for materials. USPS, that's freight. So we'll get all of the USPS ones as freight. And you can only categorize one category for each line on this spreadsheet. Instagram ads, that is going to go as advertising and marketing under general operating. Okay, we've got here a Society for Contemporary Art membership. That's like a dues and subscriptions. So we'll categorize that. Say an electric bill for your studio space, that's going to get categorized under real estate utilities. Office Depot, you buy some office supplies, and that's going to go to office supplies. Accountant fees, so those would go under professional fees. So accounting, bookkeeping, legal, those are all deductible business expenses. Adobe software is going to go under software subscription fees. Verizon cell phone, we've got utilities here, telephone expense, internet expense, gas bill for the studio. That's like another real estate utility. Art Cloud subscription, like we mentioned, that is deductible as a software subscription. Okay, American Craft Council is dues and subscriptions, computer repair, repairs and maintenance, business insurance, definitely. Say you go to a local coffee shop and meet with the collector, so you have a business meal, that goes under meals. Canva is a subscription, a bank fee, and then here's our interest income. So interest income is other income. All right. So just looking at this, we can go back to our profit and loss tab and see, you know, our profit or loss just for that income and those expenses and that little bit of interest income is 11,000. Okay. And now we need to access the payment report in Art Cloud to get the income information into here. So a couple things to know. This is a sample payments report from Art Cloud. It's going to show you the total amount, the Stripe fee, the sold price, the shipping, and the sales tax. Okay, so if we remember back to what we learned that our income is like our sold price plus any shipping income. We don't categorize sales tax. And then we do need to also account for the expenses associated with the Stripe fee. So a good suggestion is you can just create a new column and do a calculation on your own. So we can just do sold price plus shipping. Oops. To get our totals for these. So this is going to be our income column. So income is sold price plus shipping. And we can see that for each of these lines. And then honestly, all we can do is we are just going to copy this and paste it right into our workbook. If you want to put, I don't know what's happening with my copy and paste today. Oh, I know, because I've got formulas in there. So we're going to just paste this special and paste values only. Okay, because I've got formulas in there that it wasn't picking up. If you want to fill in this information for your own records, you can. But for today, for the sake of time, we're putting this in as income. And these are just all sales income. And then the last thing we have to do is go back to our payments report and grab the Stripe fee. And you can see these first two payments don't have any fees associated because they were paid by check. So no fees there, you're good to go. And then I'm going to just copy these Stripe fees, paste them in, and we're going to categorize those as payment processor fees. All right. So we'll get these last two in there. And then we can see how our business performed for the month of January. We can go back to profit and loss, and we can scroll down to the bottom and see that we had an excellent January. $76,000 in profit in the month of January alone. Everything's looking great.
Amazing. Good job. Whoever sold all that work.
Amazing. Yeah. But that's the gist of it. It's how you're getting your income and expenses into here. And then as you are entering other months down the line, your profit and loss is just going to update with your year-to-date totals and show you where your business is at year-to-date. So with that, I'm sure there are questions. So I will stop my screen share and let Laura finish up, and yeah, we'll go from there.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. That was a lot of really valuable information. really appreciate it, Natasha. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I know finances can be tricky for artists, and this was really important and amazing. So thank you so much. And this workbook is just such an asset. And it, as you can see, it works really well in conjunction with the information that ArtCloud provides. And that's a free workbook, thanks to Natasha. And so I'll be sending that again to all of you in an email. So you'll be able to check that out. And then you can rewatch the webinar and, you know, really get that information locked down and use that for your taxes. And hopefully everyone will be able to track their profit and loss and start making larger profits. So now I think we'll just open it up to Q&A. If you have a question that was not yet answered, feel free to unmute yourself, and you can just ask Alex or Natasha or me anything you might have to ask about finances for Art Business or ArtCloud. So if anybody wants to ask a question, otherwise we can just
See that Mary has her mute off. Mary, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One, and first of all, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I usually do mine in an Excel spreadsheet. Is this something, can we save this to Excel, or how do we save this document, the worksheet, the workbook? Do you save it to your desktop?
You can actually export a Google Sheet to Excel,
Okay.
which is pretty handy.
Okay, so I can export this somehow.
Yep, and I think that link you can download it to your desktop, and then it is just an Excel file.
Okay, okay, great.
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah,
thing,
I believe it's a Google Doc. So you can either make a copy of it, and I think it should force a copy, and then you can just use it in Google and it's yours. Or you can export it like Megan said to a Excel.
okay, great. And the other thing is, let's say you have a painting, it's 48 by 48, and you put a significant amount of paint on it. How do you estimate the cost of goods as far as paint material? Do you just throw out an estimate, like, let's say, okay, I'll estimate $100 worth of paint?
Well, so you're talking more in terms of tracking the paint for a specific piece of artwork?
Yeah, or do you put that in the more general expenses category?
Well, the way that would function is there's kind of two sides to it. So what I would do is whenever you bought that paint, you're going to have an expense that comes through on your bank account, and you're going to call that materials because the paint is a material. So for the profit and loss tracker, those expenses are coming through on a big picture, in a big picture kind of way versus like on a project specific way. But that's a really good time for you to analyze those expenses and say, you know what, I spent $200 on paint at the store on X date, and I think I used about half of it for this piece of art and half of it for this other piece of art. That could be like a good time for that like process to trigger you to go into ArtCloud and assign $100 of expense to those two pieces of art based on the full amount that you paid. So I wouldn't start adding expenses into the tracker that aren't coming from your source document, because that's where it becomes kind of tricky. And doing your overall financial tracking, which this tracker does, compared to your like project specific or artwork specific tracking, are kind of two separate things that I would make sure are getting managed in separate ways, if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. We have another question. Just to clarify, when asked about income, do you say the number that is the cost plus shipping minus processing fees?
Income is the cost of the sale plus the cost of any other income that you charge. So if you charge shipping income, that is your income. And then the processing fees are an expense. So technically, your net profit is the same, whether you call it call the processing fees an expense and show the full income versus if you kind of combine them together and just reduce your income by the processing fees. But the accurate way to do it is to have those two things separated out, because your numbers are going to be more accurate. You're going to be able to see better about how you're costing things, what your expenses are, because you want to know what you're paying in those processing fees. Make sure that you're getting a competitive rate. Like having that pulled out separately is going to give you good data.
I have a few questions that kind of popped up during that I said I would ask. So one of the questions was, can you customize any date range for the total sales analytics in Art Cloud? And the answer is definitely yes. You can do that for the last 5 years, from what our support said. The other question that I thought was great was for live workspaces that don't some of those costs like rent become a percentage? That was the question.
Yeah, so that is going to be like, talk to your accountant about how they want you to be tracking that. But typically, from what I understand or my experience with live workspaces is that it is just a percentage taken out at the end of the year, and your business wouldn't necessarily be paying for that full expense because it's not a full business expense. So you wouldn't be putting that onto the tracker or paying for that with your business bank accounts.
Okay.
Hi, it's Mary again.
Hey,
Hi. Okay, so let me just see something here. You might as well see who I am here. You see me? Okay, there I am. Hi. Okay, so, most of my sales are done through galleries, and so I get checks from the galleries. And I haven't figured out, and there was a little brief explanation. I think Mr. CEO
yeah, Alex.
Thank you. You explained it quickly, but I was wondering if you could just re-explain it, because that's pretty much how all my income comes in separately.
Yeah. So there's two approaches to tracking kind of third-party sales in Art Cloud. So if a gallery is selling the work for you, and then there's one coming very soon in the platform where, but the two that are available now are to either enter the work on an invoice as if you were selling it, but then apply a discount that would represent the cut that the gallery is taking, and that way your sale is, if it's a $3,000 painting, and it was a 50% consignment cost, then you could add a 50% discount on that $3,000 painting, and then that would just show that you had a $1,500 income off of that artwork sale. The other alternative is to actually just put the painting on, and on the invoice you can actually just change the cost of it on the invoice, so you could set that to whatever the consignment cost is going to be. We are in the next I should say that sometime before the end of Q1, under the invoices section, there will be a whole new section called gallery sales that will let you actually add third-party sales directly for galleries. So you don't have to kind of do that awkward workaround on an invoice. And if the gallery is using Art Cloud, when they sell the work, it will automatically appear in that gallery sales section if they happen to be using Art Cloud. So we're working on making it even more streamlined, but right now artists are just adding a discount to represent the consignment cost, or overriding the price for what the consignment payment would be.
So the source of where I record the income is through the invoice.
Correct.
I have to make an invoice in order to record the income.
Because that's what's going to drive the analytics page.
Okay. And if I get income, like from a friend who commissions me to do a painting, and I get the full check, And like I gave him an invoice through 𝗏𝗏𝗃, but then I couldn't figure out, because it wasn't paid through 𝗏𝗏𝗃, I sort of had a hard time closing it out, but I think I figured it out. I think it's that those little buttons on the upper right where is that right? Where
you can do it that way. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get into the system and show you a little.
Because like some of them, like it's saying it's on approval,
Right.
but I should say close, right? Because I got the check.
Correct. Yep. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'll pull up. I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. There's too many. Okay. So on an invoice, even if you know, like you said, it's open. There's a, you know, you didn't use 𝗏𝗏𝗃 for the payment processing, even though they might have paid you over Venmo or over a check or whatever method. If you have received payment, just log it here. So you can just click add contact payment. It doesn't have to be, oh, there's no contact on this one.
Oh, okay. Oh,
so and that's called a ledger payment. So you're just adding a record that there was a payment, but it doesn't have to go through a payment processing. And that's really important because that payment data will power all the analytics.
yes.
And it will also automatically close the invoice for you. So once you come over here, even though we're not running a credit card here, you know, you could say Venmo, or you could say check, or you know, whatever,
gallery, right?
Yeah. I would still you might want to still say check, because, you know, did the gallery send you a wire? Did they send you an ACH, or did they send you a check? You maybe could say like the check number if you wanted to be really, you know, detail oriented. And you could say, you know, gallery XYZ, and then all of these methods and notes would be available for you in the reporting and some of those exports that come out. But you can see once we add that payment here, the invoice automatically closed. Right. And then if we were to go run our payments report, because the payment date right here is 1/20, you know, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 will show that, you know, that payment came in on this date. And if you fat fingered or typoed anything here, you could always you know, click this little pencil icon and then change your date, or change the amount. If it was, you know, like you said earlier, if it was a commission and they're paying half up front, you could, you know, go back in and make that a partial payment.
Okay, I have another question.
Fire away.
Okay, so a gallery, they, at the end of the year, she goes, oh, did you ever get this check for this painting XYZ? And I was like, no, actually, I guess I never did. She said, that's what I thought, because I don't see it in my records. So she you know, dated the check December 31st, 22, but ooh, I'm shaking.
Wow.
For Friday's hitting hard.
Okay, so but I hadn't deposited it until 23, and but she's going to be recording it for 22. But I feel like I should tell my accountant I got it in 22. I mean, that would be an example of accrual versus cash. But
I'm going to escalate that one to Natasha. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly the software could accommodate either one. You could edit this date to be whatever it needed to be. But I'll let Natasha speak to the kind of what is correct.
Yeah. So you just need to worry about recording it according to your filing basis. If hers and yours are different, that's okay, as long as you each are following the way that you need to be doing according to your tax preparer. Okay. So if you're on cash basis, it needs to be recorded in January. Okay, so I feel like, because I have to record monthly, sales for Florida Department of Revenue, and so I reposted a record for earlier, but I feel like I should change that back to 2023. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, if it didn't hit your bank account until this year, If you are cash basis, so that'd be the first thing to confirm, is that it absolutely depends on what your filing basis is. If your filing basis is cash basis, you would need to record it on the date that you received the income. I think the process in ArtCloud, Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, would be that you could enter the invoice dates in 2022, because that's when you sent the invoice to the client, and then you would receive the payment on whichever day you actually received the payment. And then that would make, if you had your reports on whichever basis you wanted, they would be correct, because the accrual basis reports would be pulling based off of the invoice date, and the cash basis reports would be pulling based off of either the invoice close date or the payment report.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that would be right. So yeah, you could, I think it would be most correct in the market, because it from the artist perspective, it actually sold in January when they received payment for it, even though maybe in the.
Well, that's good to know. For moving forward, I know how to, manage. I just need to correct that last one. So thank you.
Yeah, it's always good to think about like recording things, how they actually played out in real life. So, that sale was technically agreed upon last year. And so, you can record that invoice at that point in time. And then the payment, that should be received or recorded when it was received. So those are kind of, that's a good way to think about it, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been really insightful. And as I mentioned, we'll share this information in a follow-up email. Just a last minute overview of ArtCloud and what we offer for those of you who are not yet on our platform. We have the management system, which is what we looked at today. And that will help you with your sales over time reports and your payment reports, as well as generating invoices. So great financial tool. And then we also offer the artist websites. So you can check that out. We have a few different tiers of pricing with different features available. And again, test it out with a 14-day trial. We have a really amazing support team who can help you kind of navigate the system. And then we hope to see you at our next office hours. The details are to be announced, but we will be looking at how to get your art into a museum. So really amazing topic. We'll have a panel of curators and directors from different museums around the US, giving their insights about how artists can get their art into art museums. And that's going to be in April. And again, the details will be announced. Until then, you can check out our platform tour on our office hours videos, and the link will be in the email. And then again, we have a knowledge base to help you with more detailed information, how to navigate the system. And we're always available, hello at artcloud.com or support at artcloud.com. If you have any more questions that you need about the software. And then if you want to follow up with Natasha or work with her, I'll be sending that her detailed information, contact information in the email as well. So you'll be able to link up with her. So we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.
Bye,
Everybody.
everybody. Thank you.